Michelle Pfeiffer has established herself as a versatile Hollywood entertainer and one of the most bankable stars in the 1990s and the 2000s. She amassed an impressive list of films on her resume, along with 3 Oscar nominations and a number of prestigious awards, including a Golden Globe for her role in The Fabulous Baker Boys. Despite being a sought-after Hollywood star, she manages to fly mostly under the radar. Here are 10 things you probably didn't know about Michelle Pfeiffer. She left Hollywood for several years. In fact, she didn't return to Hollywood until her kids were grown. Pfeiffer has 2 children with her husband, TV producer and writer David E. Kelley, who gave us compelling hits like Big Little Lies and The Undoing. She took a bit of a break from Hollywood starting in 2013 and returned in 2017 with roles in the movies Murder on the Orient Express, Mother, The Wizard of Lies, and more. She told Today in 2017 that her break from work wasn't a career decision, but rather something that happened as a part of her changing life. She said, I wish I could really take credit for making this big sort of sacrifice, but it sort of just evolved. I guess my priorities maybe shifted and we moved out of Los Angeles. The older the kids got, the more and more difficult it became to actually say yes. I became pickier and pickier. Well, where does it shoot? When does it shoot? How long will I be away? At some point, I became unhireable. That was really the real reason why I hadn't worked. She got her start in beauty pageants. At 19, Pfeiffer competed in a beauty pageant, the Miss Orange County, in 1978. Later, she competed in the Miss California pageant and placed 6th. The competition reportedly opened doors for her into the film industry. She is not ashamed of her pageant past, as she posted some throwback content from her pageant days. She captioned the post, "Hey, we all gotta start somewhere." She was once in a cult. When she first moved to Hollywood, she was taken in by a couple who practiced breatharianism. They believed in living without food and water, instead relying on air and sunlight. She told the Sunday Telegraph's Stella magazine that the couple who controlled her were kind of personal trainers. She added, "They were very controlling. I wasn't living with them, but I was there a lot and they were always telling me I needed to come more. I had to pay for all the time I was there, so it was financially very draining. It was only thanks to her first husband, Peter Horton, that she managed to get away from the movement. He was doing research on the followers of Unification Church for an upcoming film, and that's when she realized she was also in a cult." She cried herself to sleep every night on the set of Scarface. Michelle Pfeiffer rose to prominence by co-starring with Al Pacino in Brian De Palma's iconic 1983 dorm room poster, Scarface. She brought depth to the role of a heavily objectified woman. In an interview with Darren Aronofsky for Interview magazine, she talked candidly about what it was like to shoot the film. She said, "I can tell you that I was terrified. And it was a 6-month shoot, I think. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio and I were really the only females. It was a boys' club. And it was also the nature of the relationship for Tony Montana to be very dismissive of my character. So I would go to sleep some nights crying." She hated her role in Grease 2. While not nearly as well remembered as the original, Grease 2 did pretty well at the box office when it came out in 1982. The film, however, did not do well with critics. The film is notable, though, as being the first major movie role for Michelle Pfeiffer, who starred as Stephanie Zinnon, a year before she dazzled as Elvira Hancock in the iconic Scarface. However, Pfeiffer does not have a high opinion of her first big role. She told Hollywood.com, "I hated that film with a vengeance and could not believe how bad it was. At the time, I was young and didn't know any better." She starred in both Marvel and DC movies. Pfeiffer made her DC debut in Batman Returns as Catwoman in 1992. Years later, in 2018, she joined the MCU to play Janet Van Dyne, the original Wasp, in Ant-Man and the Wasp, followed by Avengers Endgame the following year. She'll also appear in Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. She had to do something pretty gross on Batman Returns set. Pfeiffer's role as fan-favorite Catwoman brings out one of the film's most memorable scenes. During a heavily character-driven negotiation with the Penguin, Catwoman puts a live bird into her mouth to push the Penguin into agreeing with her means. After he retaliates by holding a knife against one of her cherished cats, she eventually gives in and opens her mouth to release the bird. As it turns out, that was absolutely real. Pfeiffer really stuck a live bird in her mouth for the shot, and it wasn't a short one. Looking back, she can't believe she did that, saying she definitely could have caught a disease. At least, she was able to do it in only one shot, which limited her misery. She turned down The Silence of the Lambs. Pfeiffer was originally the director's first choice to play the iconic role of FBI agent Clarice Starling, but she turned down the role because of the film's evil script. She said she was uncomfortable with how evil wins at the end of the movie. Jodie Foster ultimately took on the role and won an Oscar for her performance. Pfeiffer also turned down roles in Basic Instinct and Pretty Woman, which earned Julia Roberts a nomination as Best Actress at the Oscars for her performance as a prostitute in the romantic comedy. She has her own fragrances line. It's no secret that celebs love creating product lines on the side, especially in the beauty and skincare space. When Michelle Pfeiffer became pregnant decades ago, she quickly discovered the unregulated and potentially toxic world of fragrances, eventually giving up on them altogether. But she missed using perfume and realized if she wanted safe and sophisticated scents in her life, she needed to create them on her own, which she named Henry Rose. The collection consists of 11 aromas channeling Pfeiffer's favorite memories, but Henry Rose's best-selling scent, Jake's House, is a favorite among beauty influencers. She struggled with imposter syndrome. Michelle Pfeiffer is a major Hollywood player. Despite her undeniable talent and success, she can be surprisingly self-deprecating. She told The New Yorker in January 2021, "I don't like looking at my work. I'm never satisfied." In fact, she said that over her career, she has struggled with feeling like a fraud. She explained to The New Yorker, "Well, that's typically my fear about my performances, that this will be the performance I will be discovered as the fraud that I have known all along that I am. That really comes from not being classically trained. I didn't go to Juilliard. I didn't study a lot. I studied in workshops and things like that, but I didn't come from the theater. There was a real snobbery when I started acting." Her insecurities are surprising from an outside perspective, but it's refreshing that the actress was so candid about struggles that many people will relate to.